Mac here with a hopefully quick tip trick product review. Working with my Negh'var here. I am on the second phase of puttying and sanding, so I've already puttied a lot, sanded a lot, recoated with a coat of primer just to kind of unify anything, clean everything up so I can see what else needs to be done. And I'm starting to work more on like the raised panel lines, the feather detail, whatever you want to call that, armor plating. And one of the things you're going to do as you sand this is you're going to soften that detail. Those edges are going to get a little bit rounded. They may even bleed into the surrounding surface, and you definitely do not want that. You want these to be as proud and prominent as possible. So to do that, there's a few things. I don't know, sanding block seems to be the wrong name for this. It is just a piece of sheet styrene that's cut that I wrap some sandpaper around in. I have a few different thicknesses that'll help me allow to get into these tight grooves with the sandpaper. For that sort of thing, when you're folding the sandpaper around really thin pieces of sandpaper, you're going to want a nice brand of sandpaper. The cheap stuff just isn't going to cut it. It's going to be like a nice wet dry. I think this is 3M's Imperial Wet Dry that I got from the car body shop section at Walmart or excuse me, AutoZone, something like that. For the rest of the stuff, you can use cheap sandpaper. That's fine. But for this sort of thing, you want something that's going to keep the grain as you fold it tight, and the sand or the abrasive doesn't flake off. If you don't have any sheet styrene, or you don't have much of it, go to Walmart, Home Depot, wherever hardware store that sells like for sale sign or yard sale sign. That's sheet plastic, and usually it's like $1.29, 99 cents, whatever. Grab a couple of them and just cut them into squares. You may have to glue them depending on how thick or thin you want them. They're fairly thin. So it's obviously easier to build up a couple thicknesses than it is to thin it down, but that'll make some really nice sanding jigs that will help you keep the sandpaper real nice and tight around the details and give you a nice sharp edge. The other thing you're going to need is, this is an Ulfa. I'm not even sure if this is sold as a seam scraper. I'll have to look it up. I'll put a link in the description. But I use it as a scribing tool, seam scraper, what have you. It works great. It has these like hooked pulling blades. Really useful tool if you do model building at all, period. But for this, it's almost mandatory. I have one of the old kind of dentist scribing tools somewhere. You see the grooves are deep black in here, so I missed one. So I can see as I'm going, details, what I'm sanding, that sort of thing. So you can see around the tip or the nose here, that it's a little more prominent than over here where it's starting to bevel into the surrounding detail. So for that, I'm just very slowly taking my tool and gently, because you don't want it to go uncontrolled off and leave a big scrape that then you have to sand and fill and do all that over again. But just very slowly, the firm pressure, just kind of scrape. Now some of the details have some curves and other stuff at the end. You're probably not going to be able to recreate that very well, at least on your first few tries with this. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to kind of just I guess straighten it out or even it out a little bit as I go. Then you're going to end up with some of the grooves. So like this little guy here, I'm going to get my head in and real gently scrape around. we'll do this eventually all the way around the model. And you can see now, as I'm kind of cleaning it up, the blade wants to easily travel all the way down. I'm going to come in here. You can use the back of a hobby blade too for this if you don't buy the tool. It's just, in my opinion, a little harder to control, easier to cut yourself, all that sort of thing. But you'll also probably break, if you have a really nice tip on your hobby blade, you may break it off and it'll go flying, and that's not a lot of fun. But it is doable. And again, the dentist, I always bought it from Squadron, the panel scribing tool. It looks like a dentist pick. Will work again. I just never was able to control it very well, and that may just be a me problem. So go around the back here because it's and you don't want to take too much off because, like I said, you're going to be doing this a few times. I feel like if you wait to the end to redo all this, like you sand prime, and then do this, it's going to be too late, and you're going to have to try to, it's just going to be a lot of extra work. So now I'm going to go in and kind of clean these lines up. Now the issue, let's see, I went too crazy there, is where there's a panel line, or sorry, a gap that you filled. So, like down here on the wings, you can kind of see that straight line going through everything. You got to be really careful not to gouge that putty out and make the gap bigger. And it may just end up that if you look really closely at the model after it's all done, you might still see the little bit of putty in there, because no matter what, you can't cleanly blend it in without the scribing tool kind of pulling it back out. So just one of the limitations. Anyways, all right, easily distracted. Once I do that, I'll take my, this one's thinner here, this one's thinner. I'll take my thinner piece of plastic, wrap my sandpaper around, go to a corner, and kind of just, you don't want to do too much because you don't want to re-round the edges, but you do want to kind of clean up any plastic shavings that are sticking there. It does work pretty nice if you can do the whole edge like this. That'll help keep everything nice and square, but I still wouldn't recommend too much. You're just kind of cleaning everything up, making sure there's a ledge there for your sandpaper to butt up against. It's not going to be a huge one, but you want it there. And I'm going to go through one that I've done here. And you can even take just this if you want to, like, make sure it's, scrape it out there. And while you're there, if you've gouged the surrounding plastic because you weren't paying attention or you pulled too hard, just, and again, you'll have to putty over it and all that stuff again, maybe if it's too deep. Luckily, there's enough primer on here that, really quick, easy gouge, you should be able to sand and blend pretty easily and not, have to refill and sand and stuff like that. So, again, this was an Olfa knife. Good sandpaper. I'm sure there's other brands. I just know 3M. Wet dry. Something that's got a real tight adhesion between the abrasive and the paper. And a bunch of different thicknesses of sheet styrene. If you're doing a big flat object, you're probably going to want something a little stiffer. than this. I don't have, I think this is 0.2 inch, which I don't know what is in metric, and this is 0.3 inch. But yeah, that's all I use for cleaning up panel lines on 3D printed models. Thanks! If you like this video, please subscribe, like, comment, all that sort of thing. Follow me on social media. I'm always posting random stuff. And hope you have a good day. Thank you.